So before we move on to the networking session and the webinar, let me introduce myself. I'm Shubhaprada, heading the sales and operations of GHRC. I would like to take a few minutes of your attention to talk about GHRC. Global HR Community is a next generation AI enabled digital platform for people managers, business leaders, HR professionals, entrepreneurs, students, and academicians to promote excellence through people in individuals, organization, and society at large through our guiding principle of connect, learn, and grow. GHRC, as it is popularly called, is founded by Dr. S.V. Nathan, Mr. Ramesh Ranjan, and Mr. Srikanth Arimanithaya, all of them from HR fraternity for more than yesteryears. In a short span of 8 months, we've subscribed to about 1,800 members on the platform, enlisted Britannia, Machani, QuestCorp, TE Connectivity, Natural Remedies, iValue, High Gains, Manipal University, and so on in our corporate membership pan-India and around the world. Honored with India 5000 Top MSME Award, GHRC has cemented its position as a leader in HR space, ranked among the top 10 HR communities in the world by LinkedIn. We are proud to have a thriving community of 6,000 plus followers on the LinkedIn, reflecting our global impact and influence. The platform is built under the guiding principle of discover, connect, learn, grow, and contribute. Discover, explore 50 plus assessment tools, cutting edge insights to uncover your potential and thrive in people management and leadership. Connect, join our global network of 1,800 professionals to build a meaningful relationship, access mentorship and collaboration on impactful initiatives. Learn, upskill with about 150,000 courses and 25 curated courses of GHRC, training in 1,800 skills, and access a vast library of resources for lifelong learning and career progression. Grow, accelerate your growth with job board, gamification features, analytics, and opportunities to participate in exclusive events and workshops. Contribute, shape the future by shaping expertise, mentoring, and engaging in community driven initiatives that drive positive impact and innovation. The future of work is essentially global, and we are looking at a global platform for professionals, leaders with global networking, cross cultural learning, shared resources, thought leadership, talent insights, advocacy, best practices, and so on. So essentially, the benefits of GHRC community would be networking, learning and development, and a collaborative platform for career growth, rewards, and recognitions. Our statistics in the last 10 months is 1,800 members, 7,000 LinkedIn followers, 150,000 courses covering 1,800 skills, 10,000 plus job listings, 600 articles, 250 marketplace listings, white papers, research papers, and so on. So I'm sure you will see value in our offerings, and I thank you for the opportunity to present the same. We offer various annual membership programs for customized to our profile, and we will be glad to assist you for enrollment as a member of GHRC. Once again, I thank you for the attention. And now let's move on to today's program and the speaker details. Over to Ritika.
Thank you so much, Shubha. I'm Ritika. I work as a HR and event manager at GHRC. So, welcome to today's GHRC webinar, How is the Key to Dynamic Workforce Management. We are excited to have you join us for an insightful discussion on how sustainable health is becoming a cornerstone of workforce management, aligning well being with business success. It is our pleasure to introduce Adarsh Holavanahali, a distinguished Chief Technology Officer with over 20 years of experience in driving innovation across cloud computing, distributed application, and IT infrastructure. His expertise spans the entire technology stack from front end application to complex data cluster. In recent years, Adarsh has been deeply engaged in reimagining healthcare, focusing on proactive care, therapeutic delivery, and precision diagnosis. His mission is to create transformative healthcare solutions that impact millions of lives. Today, he will share his insights on how population health can be leveraged as a strategic pillar to enhance workforce management, align health incentives with business goals, and strengthen brand equity. To formally welcome Adarsh and share a few words, I now invite S.V. Nathan, co founder and chairman of Visara Partners and a former CHRO of Deloitte South Asia. A respected voice in the HR profession, Nathan has been featured at major national HR events a TEDx speaker, and the author of bestseller The Heart of Work. He is a regular blogger and HR power influencer on LinkedIn and Twitter, well known for his thought provoking office truth. Above all, he is an engaging truth storyteller. So, over to you, Nathan, sir.
Deepika, thank you. Ramesh, thank you. Nandan, very happy to see you. Subha, thank you for all your introductions. Good to see old friends like Abhinava. Adarsh, thank you so much for being on the call. It means a lot to us. And I'll tell you why it means a lot to us for a couple of reasons. One is, you may not know, but years ago, I used to be the CHRO at Philips Software. So I am very fond of Philips and anything that they do. They are leaders, they are people who think years in advance. And I think the whole notion of the heart is the center of everything is something that is coming alive today. This particular podcast, webinar, call it what you will, is very important for all our listeners. I'll tell you something that happened recently that really shook me up. People, you read about this in the papers. You read about how people are absolutely healthy. They go to the gym on a very regular basis. They keep some very good health. And there are people who got clean habits. And yet, there is something that happens to them. Their family is shattered. A lot of things just go asunder. Many people have pointed this out that all it requires is a very simple health check. Now, I've been a great proponent of health check. There are several years that I've spent in trying to persuade my friends to go in for a health check, almost like you need to do it. I'll give you a small statistic. Only 50% of people in the best of organizations go in for a health checkup. And I have lost very dear friends, very young friends. There are people who have collapsed on tennis courts. There are people who have collapsed on in a gym at a workout. And I ask myself this question, why did they not just go in for a checkup? And that was only about checkup. But today, we have experts. I'm very happy that Adarsh, you are here. You could certainly enlighten us about a few things that we should be doing, but more importantly, the tremendous, I know that Philips medical system is possibly the best in the world. I'd like to hear from the best of the best. So instead of listening to me, I should now turn this over to Adarsh and Nandan to talk about what we have for this evening, the heart of the matter. Over to you, Adarsh.
Thanks so much, Nathan, for the nice words about Philips. And I do agree with you. It's a tremendous company to work for. Let me just share my screen before I start off. Yes, very good. Can everybody see my screen?
Yeah, we can see your screen.
Yes, it's a
Yeah.
Super. So I put even before I start off, I put a QR code. If people are interested, they can definitely scan this on their mobile phones and actually experience what I'm going to talk about. Just a little bit of background, as you know, and so eloquently put by Nathan about the problems that people have had. So I'm trying to going to spin a story about what the data is in the market about why things are happening. Second, obviously, a little bit about the startling discoveries we made when we started looking at the heart. Thirdly, obviously, I can't leave out technology. So I'm going to talk about some portion of the technology that we have built. Hopefully not too confusing, but hopefully enlightening. And fourth, I'm actually going to look at some of the data that we have and give you an insight into what is really happening in this world in workspaces primarily. And fifth, I think we have some wonderful people like Nathan here, and we're going to ask them some questions to see what they think of all of this and how it translates into a real world experience that they've had. Right? And of course, you can stop me anytime for questions. I don't mind, or you can hold them to the end. So let's start off with my favorite way of doing things, obviously data. And this is data that's been collected in the public domain. If you guys want the sources, I can share. But what is interesting to me is the insight on what this data rests on, right? So if you look at this left side column from top to the bottom, you see people, it starts with people who are dying because of heart diseases. And it ends with heart attacks occurring to 30 to 40-year-olds. And it's quite interesting that way. So when you see the numbers, they are going from small to big at the end. So the bottom is very big and the top is smaller. And by small, it's not small like you're thinking. It's around 4 million people at the top and 320 million people at the bottom, right? So it's a huge, huge number in India. And all of them are lined up like dominoes to have a premature incident at some point of time or the other. And that's the scary part in all of this, right? As a result of this, what is happening is pretty visible. The quality of life is going down, which we call morbidity. You have mortality rising, like Nathan pointed out. People, really young people, falling down. Some people dying. Some people having life-changing incidents. The costs are obviously rising. Even with insurance, you are spending a whole lot of money. And the median age for having an incident, and it may not be heart alone, by the way, it could be a non-communicable disease incident like high sugar or a high hypertensive BP reactivity incident. And these kinds of things are happening at ages that are lower, right? And the median age is moving by 10 years every 5 years. So every 5 years, you're shifting a decade in the last 15 to 20 years. And that's very frightening. But if I look at this, my strongest takeaway would be that everything I do tomorrow will be dictated by how healthy I am. If I have to buy a vehicle, if I have to buy a policy, if I have to embark on a trip, I'm going to look at how healthy I am. And if I'm not healthy, it will start shrinking what I'm capable of doing or want to do, right? And that's a very significant change to think about. So the bottom line is we need to start treating ourselves a lot more seriously. If you talk to any cardiologist, he'll tell you that, hey, by the time you're 9, atherosclerosis, which is the buildup of plaque in your blood vessels, and that's the primary cause for most heart attacks. And that starts off at such a young age. So by the time you're 25, 30, it's already taken root in your blood vessels. And it can only get worse as you go along. So it's extremely important for you to look out for yourselves. Now, having said all of this, this is not a scary problem, by the way. Like people have pointed out, you do some simple testing ahead of time. You keep doing some simple things like taking care of sleep or eating well, leading a stress-free life, maybe some pranayama. All of these things really help out a lot. But we tended to look at this in a very different way. We asked ourselves the question, hey, if all these clinical testing is so great and everything is being found out early, then why are people still having problems even after ECGs and echoes are done? Why is it that emergencies are still happening even though people are on medication, right? So what is going on here? And that was the part of the story that I wanted to talk to you about is we started trying to unearth what is interesting about the heart, right? So even though Philips is one of the #1 cath lab vendors in the world today, and I hope you know what a cath lab means. It's the place where they put a stent in your vessels if you have a block. Philips owns 50% of the market. And for me, when I joined Philips, I said, this is not the way to do it. We have to be highly proactive, highly preventive. And that's the only way to get after this disease. So when we looked at heart, see, it's the stuff that you see on the left. And these are all things that affect the heart. So if you talk to any doctor, he'll tell you if you have an underlying disease, if you're having poor diet, if you have poor lifestyle and so on, it tends to affect the functioning of the heart and eventually you'll have an incident. In Philips, we have a famous saying that a heart attack happens in minutes, but it's many years in the making, right? So what does that really mean? It means that all of us, say we live to the age of 80 or 85, and if people are familiar with the term MTTF is mean time to failure. It's a very common term used in manufacturing, especially of components that you buy. And all of us have an MTTF of around 3.5 billion beats. That means your heart as an organ beats 3.5 billion times in your lifetime. Now, the trick here is you can extend this to 4 billion or make it 3 billion based on the lifestyle that you have. And that's such a choice we make, right? At the end of the day, if you don't take care of yourself well, the heart will start reflecting. And the fact that God has given us two of everything, but only one of a brain and one of a heart is a significant thing. The heart is absolutely the best variable that your body could ever have. If you listen to it, the behavior that it exhibits over a period of time is a window to a whole lot of problems or good things that you're doing. Right? And so we divided the heart into 5 different portions. We said one is where the heart is balanced, both between the mental and physical forces. And then you have endurance, which all of us know. And how fast can you run? How many steps can you climb? And how can you keep your heart rate up for a whole lot of time and all of that. Stability, which is very ignored, mainly because people don't understand what it means. So if your heart is rhythmic, pulsing properly over a period of time and doesn't have a lot of volatility, that's great for it because those muscles can take it. If there is a lot of up and down continuously, then it starts to wear down. And then, of course, aging. A lot of us don't know that heart age can be very different than your actual biological age. Your heart can be older, and it happens. And traits are habits, bad habits, or good habits that the heart picks up. Like, for example, if you climb up a flight of steps, how quickly does the heart come down after you finish climbing? And if you're not in great shape, then it takes a whole lot of time to recover. So the bottom line for all of this is heart is a wonderful little organ. It's better than any wearable that you can have on your wrist. As long as you listen to the heart, if you can figure out a way to look at it periodically, it gives you a clue of what you're doing. So we, from a science perspective, we started looking at what we call our subclinical changes. So when you do an annual health report, when you do an ECG, when you do an echo, those are essentially clinical manifestations of the disease. It's already happened. We looked at before it happens, how do you start looking at changes in the body? For example, are you having a high sugar episode now? The heart can tell you, right? And if you're having some constriction in your lungs, the heart will tell you. If you have inflammation, the heart will tell you. So a whole bunch of things. So heart becomes a litmus for your entire body. And that's the point that I've been trying to make, that it's not just about heart attacks. It's actually a beautiful little organ that's an indicator for you. So we looked at tracking all these subclinical changes and understanding what are the right questions that you can answer. For example, you can say, am I doing great in life today? Because heart is a combination of both mental and physical forces, right? Very important. Behavioral cardiology is our program. So mental health and physical health together push you in the right direction for the heart. How much will you spend? And I actually looking at a heart, I can tell you how many, what is the amount of money you'll spend over the next 20 years. It's that powerful as an evidence. It can also tell you what is the risk. If your heart age is older, then your risk is higher. Heart age is lower, then the risk is lower. And it can also tell you whether you're good or not. Who knows? You might be as good as Usain Bolt or Carl Lewis or whoever it is that has a great heart at the end of the day. And it also tells you what you can do and what you cannot do. Suppose you wake up today and scan yourself with my app, it will probably tell you, hey, if you're thinking of doing extreme sports or going to the gym for 2 hours, don't do it today because you're not that well off today. And over a period of time, it will probably tell you what else it has learned about you as you go along. So I hope the meaning is clear that the heart is something that you should listen to. I'm going to play a video here. Can you guys hear the sound?
No, not really.
No, yes.
Hang on.
Srinidhi, we have to allow him to share.
Share
Or,
again.
Maybe when you're sharing the screen, you must say along with the sound.
Okay, got it.
Yeah, Mac.
No, I have a video.
You can hear.
continuing along the story that I was started upon. So what we've done is something very fundamental. Philips has created a technology which calculates the burden that your heart is under at any point of time. And this is very important. When you're working very hard, when you have mental stress, physical stress, when you have things that are a little out of control, the heart tends to work a little harder. And that's the fundamental aspect of research that we did. We spent 3 years on this, prototyping every single ethnic Indian as possible. We've done more than 6 million scans. And if you notice the video, we just use your smartphone camera. And using the camera, we actually ask you to put your finger on the camera and get a whole bunch of physiology data from your body, including vitals. And then we build an early warning cardiac profile, which can be used for warning you very early when you have to go to the doctor. It can tell you about how you're doing, whether you're improving, progressing or not. And it can also tell you whether you're doing great, you're one among many who are doing fantastically well, and so much more. So, and the heart of all of that is what we call pump. Pump is a parameter that says how much energy is your heart saving at any point of time, and that's the fundamental crux of the program. And what it does is it allows us to model an entire workforce based on the amount of energy at your disposal, which is a very significant thing. So if as a workforce, if you look at your entire population, you could have 10,000 people with different pockets of energy in each of them. And all of those energies together are going to contribute to them being productive, them being content with your story as a company, them being able to follow you wherever you lead them, because at the fundamental level, it is mental and physical energy that is responsible for getting you to a certain point on your productivity scale, right? So that is essentially what we have done. We have created a fundamental little shift wherein you can model your entire workforce using our technology. So now, as I said, I promised that I'll stop talking about technology now, and I'll talk more about data, which I find quite fascinating. So on this graph, you see the fact that the pink line denotes people between 18 and 30, and your blue line on the right indicates people who are between 51 and 60. So if you use our app, it calculates your heart energy. And so what it's showing you here is the average heart energy of people between 18 and 30 is way lesser than the average heart energy of people who are between 51 and 60. And that's a remarkable little data point. It means for either people are on medication and taking better care of themselves, or they're physically really doing well because they know what it means to sleep better, eat better, exercise better, not stuff themselves, don't do substance abuse and a whole bunch of things, right? So what is you're seeing in the market, and this I've seen in all kinds of cohorts, whether it be workforces or even consumers, the younger generation is not doing as well, and the older generation is doing much better. And what does this portend? It portends that the fact that younger people over a period of time will start sliding down. So if you are between 30, 35, you will start seeing problems much earlier than a 50 or a 60-year-old did. And that to me is a very scary thought. This can be reversed by just making good habits, but it's a bellwether for how society is moving. Right? And we have found that there's a lot of clinical relevance to this kind of data. And you'll see two more interesting things here. If you look at the bottom right, then you'll see all of them converge faster, which means the healthy or the supremely healthy in any generation are all converging. Their health coordinates are good. But if you look at the left side of it at the bottom end, you'll see that people are not converging like they did on the right, which means that they all have myriads of different problems. It's not the same problem. Some could be obese, some could have substance abuse, some could have real health conditions because they are between 35 and 40. So all of them have different issues in the left side of this graph, right? To me, it's a very, very fascinating thing. Not a nice thing for society, but this is exactly what is happening in the workforce. And so obviously, when we start thinking of populations, we can do some wonderful things with this data. That's the reason I wanted to really share this data with you. We can actually compute the burnout gravity in a company, in an organization, just based on these 2-3 scans that you take, right? The burnout gravity is essentially what is the total burden of burnout within a company and how big is the impact over the rest of the company. Obviously, if this is a higher number, then you're going to see that the company is pushing everybody to be highly stressed and hence burning out. We can create a fitness index that is again an average fitness, essentially the heart energy of your heart energy per capita across the population. Health gap is another very interesting thing, and there are a lot more indices, but this is essentially the relative gap between the weakest and the strongest in your company at any point of time. This is very relative to each organization. But so you could have a supremely healthy organization and still have people who are healthy, but not as healthy as the strongest, right? So you could have somebody who's at 60% who maybe is healthy than most other companies, but not very healthy in yours. So there's a, what is that gap? And the vulnerability level, you're only strong as your weakest link. And hence in the vulnerability level, I'm able to tell you what portion of the company is actually pulling you down. And again, remember, this is the combination of mental and physical health, right? And so for the workforce, this becomes a very strong motivation to figure out what to do. You can plan employee benefits around this. You can plan employee engagements around this. You can actually look at how much positive energy you're adding to your company at any point of time when you hire people, how much positive energy exists in a certain class, maybe the middle management or the top management. You can, if people leave, then how much have you gained or lost because they've left. And as you recollect, the mental and physical health of a person outweighs the skill or talent capability that a person has, because ultimately it drags everybody down at the end of the day. Right? So I'll kind of stop there. I don't know how much time I took, but I just wanted to share this story to you, and then I put the QR code back so you can scan this if you want, but I'll sit back and wait for questions from the audience. And I do have questions for Nathan and Sri as well.
Hey, hi, Adarsh. Nathan here. I want to tell you that this is remarkable. Only Philips can come up with these kinds of things. It's very gratifying to know that slightly older people are people who take their health seriously or have been taking their health a little more seriously. As also kind of a shot above the bow, a warning shot of some kind to let the younger professionals know that they have to be now doing something about it. So thank you for sharing. What I loved about your presentation beyond letting us know what is it that the app can do for you and how quickly you can get to know a lot of things. The one point that you made around the heart can give you way above what you normally expect it to on parameters other than itself. And he talked about 20 such. And that was very, very intriguing. And now I understand the true meaning of the heart of the matter, because there is so much to it. Thank you so much for sharing. This is easily one of the best things that I've heard in a very, very long time. And all your slides are simple. Even I can understand it. So it is really good. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Nathan. Appreciate it. Anybody has questions in the audience?
Adarsh, I took the assessment on the app.
Mm-hmm.
Now, by placing your finger on the camera, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right. I got a score of 476.
Wonderful. Anything
What
above
does
70 is
476 pumps mean? What does pumps mean?
So pumps is essentially a marker of how efficient your cardiovascular system is, right? So cardiovascular system is about the heart pumping blood, sending it to the blood vessels and coming back and sharing it with your lungs. This is a parameter that checks how efficient your heart is. Or you higher the pumps, better off you are. It's a scale of 0 to 1000, 1 to 1000. People close to 900, 800 are people like Usain Bolt, and 1000 obviously is God. None of us can get there. But ideally, you would like to be in the 500 to 600 and 700 territory. That's where you should ideally be. it is affected. So it's a true longitudinal parameter, which means that over a period of time, if your health has impacted, you're traveling a lot for a few weeks, if you have not been sleeping well, so it has had a slow and deliberate effect on you, then that parameter reflects what you're going through. And so it's to your benefit to make that parameter up, but you do need to take multiple readings. So we ask people to take 3 readings in 48 hours.
Oh,
Many of our
Sir,
phones have
I
got cameras. Just 1 minute. Many of our phones have got 3 cameras. And secondly, which finger should we use? Is it the ring finger, the middle finger, index finger, thumb?
You can use any finger, and you have to try the cameras. Unfortunately, because these modern phones have multiple cameras, they tend to pick a camera dynamically. So you'll have to try one if your finger.
Mostly it is the rear view, the normal.
Only the rear,
Yeah,
not the
camera only. I
sensor
got 3
cameras.
cameras at the back.
Yeah, you have to try one of them, and
Yeah.
if the screen becomes red, then you got the right camera.
So Adarsh, this is Babita here. I have a question.
Mhm.
Yeah, I did test the app as well. So I think I got 550 scores, and after hearing you from between the range 500 to 600, I was quite happy. So so that means I have a question regarding like how do we this things will vary depending upon the context or situation, because perceived energy and the heart energy is a combination, right? The scores are coming from the combination. So as you mentioned that it may change depending upon the travel, or it can be any other incident, things can change. So what is the ideal recurring test that we have to do through this app, which is ideal for anybody to check, at home?
So if you see, typically app will guide you when you record once. So we ask you to do 3 scans, baseline you, and then we suggest when you should scan. So, but I can tell you, if you're really supremely healthy and the app knows it, it'll tell you come back next month. If you're not, if it suspects that you have some kind of that we have to look at you deeper, then it'll suggest a few scans, maybe once in 2 weeks. And if you get a particularly low value, then it'll say come on, do scans in a period of 2 days each, right? So it's smart enough to figure out when you need to scan. But you don't need to keep looking at this data. It's not like a wearable. We are very, very careful not to scare people. And your body doesn't change that rapidly, and it's not an emergency device. It's meant to be a proactive, something to avoid emergencies, right? So it typically once a week or once in 2 weeks is more than enough.
Okay, so I have a follow-up question. May I actually?
Sure.
Yeah, so I provide, I own a company called Sapiens Minds, and I provide virtual CHRO services for the startups and the growing organizations. So I also advise on employee benefits, etc. So in that regard, and you also mentioned that we can also combine this as employee engagement and employee benefits services. I would like to know more about how you package it in terms of for the entire employees and what is the outcome. So if you could just give me a little bit highlights on that, yeah.
So what we want is every single individual out there to develop what is called a heart quality index. A heart quality index is the repetition of this scan in a time of 48 hours, 3 times, right? So we produce a simple little report that tells you how your heart quality is at that point of time. And it's a combination of these 2 surrogate markers that you saw. One is the fitness marker called heart energy, and the other is a efficiency marker called pumps. Now, when we go to an organization, the first thing we ask them to do is an organizational profile. We ask them to get everybody to scan at least once, so that we can build the organizational profile of the whole company. And so some of the data points that you saw earlier, like burnout gravity and all, can be created from this. And that starts getting people interested to know where they are and how they fit into this. Some companies that we work with do the heart quality index for all the individuals, which means 3 scans for every individual, and develop the so the user gets full benefit from doing 3 scans, and the company gets great benefit by looking at his anonymous data. So that's the first step for any organization. Once you put the baseline, then there are multiple things that we can look at. Certain people who are highly stressed can go on a once in a week or once in 2 week monitoring program. You can have rewards attached to it. You can do social incentives. You can do a whole bunch of things. We'll be glad to discuss this with you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Adarsh. That was very informative. Thank you.
Yeah, Ashwini, go
Adarsh,
ahead.
Sorry, go ahead.
Hey, yeah, hi, Adarsh. Thank you so much. So I have just only one question. So there are many youngsters, who do work out, who do prioritize so much on their health today, but still, without any hint, without any clue, heart attacks are happening to many youngsters. So just like, suddenly, immediately that can happen to anyone. So what could be the reason? Others, like any idea? Like,
Yeah, there are multiple reasons. One, after COVID, especially, there has been an uptick in the number of incidents due to a sudden block that emerges. So if you look at any heart blockage, as I said, it takes many years to develop. But there have been instances where the block formed somewhere else in the system, went and lodged itself into one of the major arteries of the heart, and the heart couldn't get over it, right? That's one cause. There have been electrical problems, which is essentially the heart is an electrical organ, right? It produces a lot of electrical energy. So there has been electrical disruption, which is called sudden cardiac arrest. And that's why people just fall down and die. This is the second reason for it. And third, of course, they are overworking their heart. And that you shouldn't do. Typically, people, when they do gyms, they go eat steroids or protein powders, all of that, which actually starts making the heart and the circulatory system work way harder, right? So you should, one of the things that the modern life has done, you keep pushing yourself without realizing where to draw the line. I've seen people who have slept for only 4 hours go and hit the gym for 2 hours and come back. And that's not a great thing to do. And it used to be common sense earlier, but now people seem to ignore it. So typically what happens is this accumulated pushing of your body over a period of time, which is both mental and physical stress, makes the heart muscles weaker. And it's unable to resist some of these sudden things that happen to it. Right?
oh,
There's no
so
one reason for this. And that's why I'm saying that you cannot clinically test it. You cannot give a medication and make it all right. You really need to holistically recover.
correct. So by continuous of working whole, beyond of the normal standard hours, if they keep continuing whole night and all, I think that can be another factor, right?
Yes, which is why the parameter pumps that we talked about is very crucial. That is your longitudinal parameter. It doesn't change that often. The heart energy is very sensitive. This one is not as sensitive. It's very specific. So if you are overworking over a period of time, it will start showing you lower. And then immediately you should not do all of those things.
Oh, okay. So just a small question of the following on this. You were talking about the ideal number, like 8.2, 60% and 70%. So these are the ideal metrics that's supposed to be, or it can be, or it should be higher than that, like.
So it can be higher, but those are organizational metrics, right?
Organization metrics.
Not individual metrics. Individual metrics, the scale is given for both of those parameters. Ideally, in the heart energy, if you are beyond 70, you're doing good. And in pumps, if you are doing beyond 700, you're doing great. But between 500 and 700, you're decent.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm done.
Sure. I have a question. Adarsh?
Yep.
I thought I had a contradiction. You said the best scores of 800 or 900 is Usain Bolt and Carl Lewis or whatever it may be. But don't you think these guys are, overstretching themselves, pushing their limits? They are in the gym, they are doing cardio and so many other exercises and pushing their limits to be the Olympic champion. How is it that their heart, they're getting the best score?
So the answer to that is simple. If their heart was not great, if it was not performing at an all-time high, they wouldn't be Olympic athletes to begin with. It just doesn't happen that you overstretched so much that you've gone and won the Olympics because you did it. It has to be super powerful for them to even achieve that state, right? And so even if they have run 100 meters in 7 seconds, that guy is still breathing and walking around without, I mean, he can run a lap around, right? So obviously these are gifted athletes. It is for the ordinary people who push themselves and overwork is where the contradiction starts.
Okay.
Adarsh, Nathan here, I have a question for you. There are people who have come out of these medical tests, the annual medical health check. And within a week, for some reason whatsoever, they would suddenly cop it. Their health records are absolutely perfect. The doctor gives them a thumbs up. That evening, they are in the best of health and cheer. A week later, suddenly everything is lost, and they I mean, within 5 minutes they're gone. And how does one even reconcile oneself with these kinds of well, it's not really anecdotal. This has happened to a very dear friend of mine, and I'd like to know from you how those things can happen or occur.
Okay. So typically, as I said, the ones that you're referring to are typically sudden cardiac deaths, right? SCDs, they call it. There's a sudden loss of electrical function in the heart. And this is the problem with clinical testing. The clinical testing is all about, let's say when you take an ECG, right? It's only the manifestation of the electrical problem at that point of time. And so if it doesn't happen at that point of time, that guy gives you a clean bill of health and you walk off, right? That's typically the issue with clinical testing. Because of medical legal reasons, they have to be very precise at that point of time. They can't tell you before and after what has happened. Now, that is why you have to look at heart behavior. So if you have successfully screened yourself very regularly, then you will notice patterns. You will notice when you're high and when you're low and things going low or things going high, and you're able to spot those patterns and say, hey, maybe I should look at these things deeper. You might have a rhythm issue. So rhythm issues happen a whole lot where the heart doesn't beat rhythmically, suddenly skips a few beats here and there, you're not able to recover from it. And that's one of the reasons people just drop down. I am not going to say that you can detect everything. It's not possible. But if you do scan yourself regularly, 7 times out of 10, you will be able to know that things are not okay with you. And the current set of tests that you've done is not enough.
Got it, Adarsh. Now it explains a few things because it's, this happened about a week ago and I'm still trying to get to grips. What do I tell people around? This person has been absolutely healthy, etc., etc. That begs the second question, Adarsh. I know I may be jumping the gun. I know that Philips, they get the best products in the world, but at not the best and affordable cost. So I know you're smiling your way because I've been there. I've worked with Philips. Give us a sense for all people who are on the call. What does it really cost to get an app like this? And let's say for a year or so, what would you say would be reasonable charges?
Okay. Actually, to answer your question, I'd like to go back to why we started as a program. So we actually started this only for India. It's a made in India, made for India program. This was never created elsewhere. We have the entire team here and we looked at what is the economics of India before we even started this off, right? So if you're reasonably healthy and you do around 15 scans in a year, it's probably going to cost you less than 1,000 rupees for the entire year. That's pretty much what it is.
Others, if it is less than 1,000, then I think forget just people who are on the call. We need to evangelize this, Adarsh.
Definitely.
I mean, it is criminal for people to ignore the fact that for less than 100 rupees or a little over $1.25 per month, it would give you a good sense of where you are health-wise. So first of all, full marks to Philips India for that. Thank you for getting on a program which is right up and center or where it should be, affordable healthcare. And one of the things that stayed with me was the fact that your heart could also tell you whether somebody is diabetic.
Yeah.
This is incredible, Adarsh. So thank you so much. I certainly would like to be one of the first guys to volunteer. I do a good job. I hit the gym every day. I run so many kilometers a day, etc. But back of my mind, I do know that as one grows older, forget getting wiser, the thing which one needs to work on even more is staying healthy. I was very impressed when we had a seminar by a gentleman called Dr. Peter Diamandis. Now, Peter Diamandis started a company along with another person called Singularity University, where they look at how can you grow an organization 10x. So they looked at growth of an organization. They looked at all kinds of things. It all starts with just a mindset. And in the same thing today, they are talking about abundance, not just in organization, they're talking abundance in health, abundance of resources, abundance of health. He goes on to say that nothing stops a person where the average age or the average mortality rate is 82 years today, of the best in the best of countries. In India must be around 72 or so. You can actually do it 10x, which means people can live to about 700 or 800 years. And I'm not very surprised, because you hear about these rishis and munis and all these guys living like forever. And perhaps unknown to us, they may have had one of these Philips applications in some part of their hands that they would very cleverly monitor to ensure that they are in the finest of health and cheer. So Adarsh, thank you for sharing this. Very nice to see that this is $1,000 rupees a year, and I'm sure even if it is open to the public, it'll be really, really good. For one, you not only have a convert, I'd be very happy to even evangelize this. This is
wonderful.
This is tremendous. Thank you, Adarsh.
Wonderful. Nathan, I have a couple of questions for you. So today the employers kind of have been ignoring health. By ignoring, I don't mean sidelining it, but they've been doing employee benefits. They've been giving them the best of insurance and all of that. But now it has gotten to the point where the employer has to take an active role in the employee's health, because he or she spends 8 to 10 hours at the company, or so half of his life or half of her life in the company. Wanted to understand what your thoughts are in terms of employers actually incentivizing employees to maintain good health and recognizing them for good health as well.
Adarsh, I'm waiting for the day when organizations, when you say incent, the first thing that comes to my mind is there a way that one day we would have organizations which start to say, for people who are healthy, and there could be some parameters around this, they'd be given time off. For example, they'll give you maybe 3 days extra holidays in a year. And that would be something. I can tell you, in one of the organizations that I worked recently, and I stepped off last year, we would have leaders who are on the stage at annual events, any event, where we would challenge them to do 50 push-ups. Not for anything, not to show the world that they can do it, but the fact that people can stay in the CXO levels, provided they are as concerned about their health as of the employees. You asked me a question. I think employees are getting serious, Adarsh. The first thing, the best thing that happened to us in our lives was COVID. What COVID did for us was tremendous. Apart from the fact that it got people to be a lot more sensitive and all this stuff about YOLO, the key was mental wellness. That's where it all started. Today, beyond mental wellness, they then expanded that to say physical wellness is important, financial health is important, spiritual health is important, and so on. But the fact that holistic well-being is something that a lot of organizations are focused on. And I do know that there have been several evangelists, but somewhere along the way, others, they lose steam. They lose steam only because commitment is not it's not like a men's day, an international something day, or international good health day, or international heart day. Every day is got to be a healthy day, every day. So organizations which take a lot of care on this, they go far. I know of organizations where they'll go after people who have not had their health checkup. And wherever they find that people are off mark, and of course, all this is voluntary. You cannot go and say, Adarsh, tell me what was your score, right? How well have you fed? But the fact is, if you have a lot of people doing this, they really would go a very long way, because one of the things that this app showed up was how happy or how unhappy are you at this point in time.
Mhm.
Organizations do something called Centimeter. What is the sentiment at? So the sentiments of people are captured. This app does another very interesting thing. I'm sure that over a period of time, there is an aggregation of how healthy your heart is. So I know that Nandan did a tremendous job when he set up a wellness firm, which really worked very, very hard. Organizations need to support firms which are into wellness. The thing is not about an app that comes up. There have been a lot of research that have showed that once you get onto an app and you stop using the app for about 2 to 3 days, your interest in that app will go down dramatically.
Right.
And all this stuff about when people say habit is a 21-day metronome, it is not. It's actually 66 days.
Mm-hmm.
66 days is like 2.5 months in professional's career. So it means you got to go a very, very, very long way. Back to the question that you asked, I think it's imperative. This is the time. This is the time. This is the year. This is the month. This is the moment when CXOs really start to look at it and say, we need to be driving good behavior through good actions, starting with how healthy can a person be. People mandate that you got to go. I mean, an organization do it free of cost. And the amount of money that the organization spend is humongous.
Mm-hmm.
But the one thing that we don't do post that is, okay, you had your wellness checkup, that's fine. But what after that? I don't think organizations get after that. Today, I dare say that only about 20% of organizations around really take healthcare seriously. And only when there is some untoward incident that happens that suddenly jolts organizations into, it's almost like, okay, you got a shock, and then your hand shakes a little bit, and then you say, okay, this will pass, and it's another normal day, business as usual. I think organizations will have to work exceedingly hard. And I do see the need in the next 2 to 3 years. Things are not getting any easier, Adarsh. As much as you see what's happening around the world, the stress levels are really going up. And in organizations, if people don't recognize, one of your slides talked about a burnout. Time that organizations do a burnout check. We do a lot of programs. Organizations do a lot of program around saying, how safe an environment can you create? All that is very nice, very laudable. But I think it's time that organizations start to move in the direction of how healthy can organizations grow. And if they focus a lot more on health, it will just go places. Ultimately, we are responsible for employees. And when you say it's my responsibility, the person takes the accountability of his own personal health. But if organizations hand on heart, they say, I will be responsible for people's health, then I think there will be a change of heart, and I think we'll be a lot more wiser, a lot more healthier. Back to you.
Totally. Very nice. Very nicely answered, Nathan. I have another question for you, and obviously anybody in the audience as well. Now, for such a long time, we look at brand equity in terms of our position in the market, our messaging to the rest of the world, the things that we achieve. But health is not something that contributes to brand equity at all. Now, there are certain organizations I've come across, manufacturing firms, which take a whole lot of pride in how healthy their workforce is. I've always been struck by the statement that one of the CMOs made in one of the companies that I visited. He said, you guys go to great universities and churn out great qualified individuals. We take totally healthy people and convert them into diabetics and hypertension and hypertensives after 15 years, right? That was a pretty chilling statement to make. And so I'm wondering for the HR in all of us, how will we make companies realize that health is a very important portion of brand equity that you showcase not only internally but externally as well?
So Adarsh, very early in my life, when I was to take on a role as a management trainee, is one of the largest British multinationals in the country and very well known, world over. One thing that they did was they made a statement. They said, your appointment is subject to satisfactory medical report. And they put me through a battery of tests. And one of them gently called me over and they said, we have a slight problem in that I've got to take another chest x-ray of yours. So I said, is anything wrong? He says, nothing is wrong. Please don't worry. We just saw a slight black patch on the left side of your lung. And but don't worry too much about it because it happened in Calcutta, which is where I got the test done. He says there was a momentary power loss. And there's every possibility that they would have captured portion of that. So fret you not, please come over for another test, which I did. I cleared. But post that, what was even more interesting was that was the last medical test I've ever had in my life at a career spanning close to 40 years. And the reason is, do organizations take medical checkups very seriously? There are very few organizations. I belong to that organization which took that health checkup. But more importantly, they were kind enough to call me back and say, listen, we care about you. And long after, I used to have the CMO come up to me and say, Nathan, I hope you're in fine fettle. So, but you please tell me what you do on a daily basis and so on. And my admiration for this organization grew leaps and bounds. This is an organization which is into chemicals, and you may know its products, well-known product called Savlon. And you would know, bunch of things. This is a very famous organization. But that was my entry into what genuine care can do. You asked a question about brand value. And I think if there's an organization which says we also make steel, and that became a very popular byline years ago, if you remember what Tata Steel did. I think if organizations show all kinds of things about people who are cheery, people who will maintain a good lifestyle, and there are organizations which have a lot of brand ambassadors who talk about their personal health. And then the byline should say, hey, we also consult for the world. How nice would that be? Because I think you're making a very telling point. It's not financial success that alone determines what you have as a brand value. Today, if you look at the HR world, you have best companies to work for, or the best companies for women to work for, and so on. You have a dozen of those. I'm yet to come across a company which says, best company to work for it cares for your health.
Absolutely, yeah.
I think the day when one organization starts to do that because it believes in it, I think you would really have a run, and you would have a lot more people looking at health. Yes, today in this very easy world, we are easily torn between the quick and easy, which is fast food, and the other one, which is a slow grind. And I still remember eating at home in the village that I come from is a ritual. Is a ritual. They will not serve you any faster because you just have to catch another flight or get on to another webinar or get on to another call, and our life is made this way. No. There's a graduated way in which almost you got to wait for all the, or you have a banana leaf that is laid out, and you would have all the curries and all this stuff, and then there's a little bit of rice and a little bit of this, and They'll make you eat all kinds of things that you may not even like. For example, Karela. I mean, the bitter, the sweet, I mean, the whole range of this. I think they were telling us something, that you got to be slow. You got to slow down. You got to slow down to hasten in your life. And I just hope, Adarsh, I will remember this long after. If there is one organization that comes up and says, this is the best place for people to stay healthy, that will be fantastic.
Absolutely. I am also going to look forward to that day.
Excellent. Any questions from the audience for Adarsh? It will be a good time to ask him.
Hey, hi Nitin. Hi Adarsh. Yogesh here.
Hey,
Just
Yogesh.
a minute. Let me put on my camera. Just a minute. Yeah. First of all, Adarsh, thank you so much for introducing us to such a wonderful app. It's really great. It's really great while sitting in your room and just testing the health of your heart. It's really great. Now, uh, I'm listening to the discussion. All the points which Nathan has given, which you have given, all points are very relevant. Now, if I connect all these points to the current circumstances, right? See, I take my example, right? I'm working in a multinational company, and over here there is lots of workload. People are getting I would be a little truthful also, right? So people are getting laid off also because of cost cuttings and all. So we have to try to put in our level best when it comes on keeping a job, when it comes on showing a performance, that and simultaneously when it comes on that we are adding value to the firm, right? So besides all these things, I'm trying to do, I believe, my bit when it comes on my health. I'm just trying to hit to the gym, not on every day, but at least twice or thrice in a week. Uh, Trying to follow the breathing exercises also, again, not on daily basis. Trying to take a good sleep also, again, not on daily basis, depends on my workload, depends on my schedule, right? Second thing is, this is just one of the practical example which I have given you. Besides this, it comes on my food habits. Again, because of my uh, you know uh, my schedule, or you can say other situations, every time not being able to take healthy food, right? When it comes on pollution level and all, about all these things, can't help it out, so considering all these circumstances and each and everything, how practical, how feasible it is to to uh, uh, to some extent to take care of your health. When it comes on mental stress and all, work pressure, everything, right? Though when it comes on me, I'm trying to do my bit. Sometimes I know that, okay, this is not good for my health, but still I have to do it, right? Because of the situation and everything. So what are your views on it? This question is to both Nathan as well as Adarsh.
I'll go first, and Nathan, being around for much longer than me in this, can answer probably differently. See, all of us have gone through the situations that you're describing. Worked as hard as possible, driven ourselves to the point where we are exhausted and all of that. But my ability, I think, personally, I'm speaking about myself, is the ability to recognize when my body cannot do something. And when it doesn't, then I don't worry at all. I'll take rest. I will come back up much stronger when I'm ready, and then go forward and work again. And I never changed that aspect of myself. Nowadays, of course, I go to sleep at 9 o'clock and wake up at 4 o'clock every day, and that's my schedule. I don't change that for anybody or anything. And this is a very hard lesson I learned over the years, right? So the point I'm making is, yes, it's sometimes unavoidable. but it's up to you as a person to figure out what works for you and what doesn't work for you. Everybody is not the same. Some people can push on for days and weeks and months and still nothing can affect them, and some people cannot. And there's no harm in figuring out what works for you and what doesn't, and making sure that you're able to explain to your employer at some point of time that, hey, this is not working for me, I need to dial down. It doesn't matter what you think at the end of the day, because if my health goes, then I can't work. It's us. I mean, you don't want to be a statistic like the E&Y case that happened, right? You really want to be a living, breathing person who can add enormous value to the company they work for. And I think any manager, some of them, of course, may not like it, but most of them will, is what I think. And I'll let Nathan answer this from his perspective.
Not very different from what others said, but before I go there, Yogesh, full marks to you, man. For a person who's undergoing all kinds of stress, you're, it all starts in our minds. Whether I want to stay healthy, whether I want to work out, whether I want to take a walk, whether I want to sleep early, it's all in our head. If you decide early on that this is what I wish to do, then everything is fine. So I have a view about this. The view is, when times are normal, then you have what I call as rule sets. You have certain rules that you go by, you do this, you do that. But when the times are different, when the times are, the whole thing is very tumultuous. We don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, whether they're going to be laid off or what's going to happen. There's going to be something that's going to come down the pike. I call these tumultuous times. In these times, you cannot look at rule sets. You got to be looking at mindset. And the mindset has got to be a growth mindset, which says, if you have to be resilient, resilience starts with a little bit of discipline within yourself. Let me throw something at you. If you go to the gym and spend 30 minutes and come out, do you feel a lot less stressed or more stressed?
The former. Like I generally feel that okay, I'm now very much relaxed.
Yes.
This is like pertaining to me.
Yeah. By the way, it's true for the world. There's also a hormone that kicks in that makes you a lot more happy. So if the whole purpose is to feel happy, what's the worst that can happen? You will take away my job. Be my guest. Be my guest. As long as you don't take away my life. And by the way, it's not organization taking away your life. You are feeding yourself as fodder. That's not required. As long as you can have what I call as boundary management. I'll tell you where we lost the boundary management argument. We lost it after COVID. When COVID set in, we forgot our boundaries. Otherwise, normally, and Adarsh would second what I say, we wake up at 6 normally. Adarsh, you're a deviant man. I mean, you can't wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning. Please don't sleep at 9 o'clock, man, please. So we wake up at 6 in the morning. We go to bed at 10. We start our day when the sun is up, 9 o'clock. 6 o'clock, sundown, you pack your stuff and come home. You don't think about work. You're not carrying work home. You're not sitting at your computer doing all kinds of stuff. Yes, some days will be difficult. I mean, anybody who's a professional knows that there are what I call as peak seasons and low seasons. Peak seasons, even if I work 14 hours a day, I need not be stressed. As long as I have a strong mind, and that comes in because you have a healthy mind in a healthy body. A healthy body requires a few things to be done. Just starting with eat, sleep, move. That's a fantastic book that I read some years ago, and I'm still very fascinated because it works. Eat right. Sleep right. Move right. That's all. And I remember, by the way, I've also worked some crazy number of hours, but at lunchtime, 30 minutes, finish up whatever you have, And we used to have a long, right around the building. The building was a monster of a building. I used to go around and walk for some 20 minutes aimlessly, but it helped a lot. Yeah, we're working hard, we're working late, but it works. So I hope that answers your question, Yogesh. But the thing that exercises do for you is it gets you to be a lot more resilient, because it's all about what happens in your head. Between these 2 years, that matters the most.
Thank you so much, Nathan and Adarsh, for sharing your fantastic views. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yogesh, I just want to add, Yogesh, I'm a strong believer that it's not the absence of stress, but the conquest of stress, right? If we believe that we can have a life without stress, I think we are living in utopia. We need to ensure that how do we learn to manage stress, and there are so many techniques, and as Adarsh has also said, right? So we will have to learn to live with stress, but how do we cope up with the stress? That's where I think we can help ourselves, right? As Nathan rightly said, right? Eat, sleep, and move could be a recipe for managing stress. Meditation, yoga, in your case, maybe the gym, right? Sometimes playing with your loved ones. It could be your dog, it could be your daughter, it could be your family, or it could be playing a sport, right? We don't know. You'll have to find out what's the sweet spot that helps you to cope up with the stress. But let's all accept it that life is going to be stressful. We cannot run away from stress. But how do we manage the stress? How do we conquest the stress is what is going to make between success and failure.
Thanks, Ramesh. Thank you.
So probably a question for everybody and whoever wants to answer. Why is health not part of the ESG index? ESG talks about circularity, talks about renewable, all of that, but health is never seems to be a part, even though it is a primary consumer of both concepts. And probably how far away are we from where a line manager's KPI will reflect the health of the people under him or her?
No, I didn't get your others because many of the companies that work, we had SHE, safety, health, and environment as KPIs and parameters to measure the success of a manager. So we do track health and put it as part of the KPI to determine the success factors of an individual.
Another factor, like, yes, organization has to take care of health and everything, but I always feel like Nathan sir was also telling, health starts within ourselves first, with our mindset first. How much our external factors help us to do, and our mindset is not there. I mean, whatever the organization is also doing might fail. I just met a person who said, okay, they even measure the proteins, the carbohydrates that they give in canteens, and they vaccinate people, and they have smoking zones which is very far for people to even try smoking. So they still had a lot of things, but still the health index was not moving. So I think it's both the effort, the individual's effort matter a lot, uh, combined with the organizations.
Well, very well said.
Very well
Absolutely, very well said. You just like a simple thing. You look at any packet, any cigarette packet, the image that you have on that is horrendous. But that does it stop people from smoking? They would even care a tuppence. They would smoke away to glory regardless of what you put out there. You're so much on point. Everything says, okay, you're going to have this to eat. This is going to cost you 836 calories. Does it stop from you binging on your favorite vada or potato wedges or wafers? Answer is no. So mindset is important. Well said.
Absolutely.
Okay, I have a quick question for Adarsh. So Adarsh, how do we start and how do we get hold of this app? What can we do at GHRC? Because this is going to be very useful, and I'm sure that this is a question that Ramesh has on his mind as a CEO. He is very keen. So why don't I I turn this over to Ramesh because he's very keen on seeing how we can share this with a broader audience. Over to you, Ramesh.
Yeah, Nathan, we are trying to work with Nandan and of course Adarsh to see how we can build a strategic partnership with Philip and offer this to our community and promote this within our community and to the larger community also. So we are working on something and we should be able to come up with a program or a plan or a offer very shortly in this regard.
Yeah, I think this is conquered by via small steps, obviously. The best way to do this would be for GHRC to maybe create a HR showcase of every company where you say, hey, you have participated and recording your health, and your health is this good. And if you do that, then the revolution will start from the right people. Once they understand what it means to be healthy, then they'll start figuring out whom to help within the company. So I think we'll brainstorm with you guys to see how to take this forward.
Yes, definitely. This is the first step. Today's awareness program. We'll take this from here.
The same awareness program by all the HRs to their companies also will add a lot of value.
I agree.
Yeah.
In fact, I have a suggestion. I think this should be led not by HR, but by the CEO.
Business.
Yeah, top-down approach, yes.
Absolutely,
yes.
because then
Absolutely.
you will see a lot of people running up and signing and saying, yeah, I need to do this.
For that, they have to start experimenting themselves, Nathan. I think they should start off from there.
So, Dripa, I worked in a company many, many years ago where they took safety very seriously.
True.
And when I say safety very seriously, this was an explosives factory. So obviously safety is important, but they took it to ridiculous levels to let you know how keen they are on safety. One day, a friend of mine who had joined this company as a management trainee, he fell down in his own house from a ladder and he fractured his arm. That year, his increment was halved. And he protested that, look, this happened at home. This is not in the office. And they were very clear. You cannot be more safe at home than you are at work. Nothing works. And if you don't like this place, well, there are other places for you to work. If you can take safety that seriously, you can take health seriously as well. But it all depends on somebody saying, I am going to make that difference.
Somebody has to start. Yes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And if it's a business leader, it'll just go miles.
Yes. Yes. So,
thank you for sharing.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah.
No, I just mentioned in my chat as well. So I just wanted to add this. So it was not CEO or it was not HR, that led the health indicator in our startup of say 50 people. It was, one of the employees, who was getting ready to get into army he was training it to its best fitness, and he made us all do it. So we along the journey got that into habit. So it was not a HR initiative. I never did anything, but he also made me do things, which, it did just spread like a wildfire in the organization. All of us really became, okay, what are we eating? What are we doing? Physical fitness and everything. So it was a good, employee driven aspect as well.
Kumunda, that is so well shared. Thank you so much for your snippet. I think it'll go a very long way. As long as you have somebody take this, and the word that you used was influence, it was not coercion.
Influencer.
If you coerce people, if you push people, they will resist. If you invite, there's a what's in it for me. But you influence, then I'm sure there are a lot of people who will take this up. Okay.
Adarsh, I had one question, technical question. Is this something like the Nadi Push? Olden days, they feel your pulse and then they can tell you what are your parameters. So is this your technology something similar to that? Measuring the pulse rate or whatever may be?
So
Adarsh, just say yes, Adarsh.
Unless an IP.
No, okay, it is something like that because the physiology of the body. So when you actually pump your blood, there's a certain rhythm and a pattern to it. And that's exactly what the Nadi does, right? He looks at the rhythm of what is happening in your body, and that's the equivalent of this at the end of the day. It's actually a really good point.
My father used to be a doctor, and he used to tell me that by just looking at the pulse, he'll tell me what's your ailment.
So we look at a whole lot of parameters, not just the pulse, but the idea is very similar. You don't need exact precision data for this. You just need to be approximately right, and you'll be able to give a lot of value.
Ramesh, thanks for sharing this, because I had a general physician in our house for a very, very long time, my father times and so on. And he was pretty much like that. He would just, he won't send people off to tests and all that stuff. He'll just hold your pulse for a few minutes, and he'll look you in the eye, and he will tell you what it is. And of course, his second step would use this stethoscope, but that is far and few between. But those guys who manage to do that are doctors of great eminence and great practice. Today, we don't go to the doctors the way we used to do that in the past. First, it's kind of beyond this. So beyond our reach, not the common man is deprived of good medical care, and therefore that's where this app comes in useful. When you tell people that it's only 100 rupees a month, then you're telling that person it's almost 3 rupees a day. Can you imagine, for 3 rupees a day, you can really get a good insight to what's really happening. A CAT scan will set you back by 7 to 10,000 rupees depending on the hospital that you go to. So Adarsh, we are all very keen, man.
In fact, just to augment what you said, one of the things that's been missing in all of us is the common sense with respect to our own body. That's kind of disappeared altogether. Whenever there's a problem, you just call the doctor and expect him to do magic, right? Which is not correct in my opinion. So this kind of a tool brings that awareness to you regularly. So once you map yourself out over a period of time, you will understand your body very well. What is working for you, what isn't working for you, and what you need to do about it.
Absolutely.
Any plans, Adarsh, to bring it into a smartwatch?
Yeah, so we are today working with wearable integration. But the problem with wearables is I just don't know what you're doing when the wearable collected the data. You could have been drinking coffee, you could have just gone for a run, you could have been doing something else. And the context is very important for this data. So we ask people to sit and record when you're rested for a few minutes. But we are planning to look more deeply at wearable data as well.
I think the cardiologist, especially, I would say the very old timers, they normally check the BP 3 times, right? After resting for 10 minutes or 15 minutes. So that is the best way which they could figure it out what is happening in your body. The same thing goes with this as well.
Yes, it's a very good point, by the way. More than 10 minutes, what they typically do is if you recall back the olden days,
they
ask you to come back the next day.
Right.
And they would do it over 3 continuous days and say, okay, then I can figure out whether you are really hypertensive or not, or whether your heart is having some other issue. And that's what we recommend as well. So we say over 48 hours, if you do 3 scans, then I'll be able to calculate the heart quality index, your heart quality index, and that's reasonably accurate. As you give me more scans, obviously, I'm going to be incredibly accurate because I've known what affects you and what doesn't. But the principle is right.
Perfect. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Before the customary thank you comes in, let me say that of all the webinars that I have been part of, others, this has easily been one of the most engaging for people who are on the call. The level of excitement is pretty high, and what it holds for us for the future, and the laudable way in which you ask some very pointed questions as to what organizations need to be doing just makes us think. So Adarsh, from all of us, a very sincere thank you. And personally for me, Philips holds a very special place in my heart. I wish Srikanth were there on the call. because she was also in Philips, and the two of us worked years ago in Philips, and I know the kind of passion that they have for both innovation and bringing on things within the reach of the common man is what you have done. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Nathan. Those were very nice, kind words, and I truly enjoyed this discussion. I have managed to pick your brains, pick other people's brains as well, and learn from this process. I think this kind of a problem cannot be solved in isolation, whether it is Philips or anybody else. We all have to come together, figure out how to make that impact and scale this across India. So it would be great to work with the GHRC and move this forward.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
That's
So
what I
thanks
think
to
the community comes in. That's
Sorry.
what I think community comes into place, and we'll be more than happy to collaborate to ensure that the noble cause that you've taken up, we can spread it as far and wide as possible.
Wonderful. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, Ramesh, for organizing such a great session, actually, which is very, very important for everyone. And thanks, Subha, for all the good work you and Ritika have been doing. Thanks, Nathan.
Thank
You
you.
know,
Thank you.
you have been a legend and always, talking the very bold statement, which is very important for the fraternity. And I think you are the flag bearer. I always tell we need, the leaders who should take the ownership and accountability and lead the people in a right path. And I think that's what the role you are playing. And we are so happy to work with you on this initiative.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Nandan. Thank you so much. I know that you've been at the forefront. You've done a lot of work personally. So from all of us, a very big thanks. But before I sign off personally, I want to thank a few people here. I want to thank Subha. I want to thank Ramesh because he's always a very, very silent worker, exhorting his team to work. Ritika working behind the scene. And I'm sure that I've missed half a dozen people. But a very special thanks to all people who are on the call. Adarsh, a big, big salute. Nandan, thank you for what you do.
Thank you,
For
GHRC.
people who have contributed like Kumuda and others, thank you again.
Yeah.
Bless. Cheers.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone. Great opportunity.
We had quite an engaging conversation today.
Yeah.
And so everything has been told by the leaders, so there's nothing much in specific. And the key takeaway for me today's discussion is concerning the trends on the fitness insights among the younger generation, which we need to take care of it. And that's a crucial area that requires collective action as well.
Yeah.
So let's continue this conversation and take meaningful steps towards building a healthier and a more dynamic workplace, which starts off with our own minds, as we all rightly said, and decisions that we make for ourselves. So wish you all a very wonderful evening ahead and a wonderful week ahead as well.
Super.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yogesh, thank you so much for sharing, man. I love what you said. Thank you. Bye. See you in
Thank
3
you.
months.
Thank you,
Cheers.
everyone. Thank you,
Yeah.
Nathan.
Bye-bye.
Thank you,
Everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you,
Bye-bye.
Nathan sir. Thank you, Adarsh. Thank you, Nandan.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Bye,
everyone,
Ritika. Thank you for
Bye.
what you do. Thank you.
Thank you
Awesome.
so
Keep
much.
doing great
Bye-bye.
work.
for the wonderful session. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
All the
you.
best.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.